Let the body, the heart, and the mind become quiet. Settle into your body. Breathe your breath. Let the body become quiet. Focus into your heart. Let yourself feel your feelings. And let the heart become quiet. Focus into your mind. Let yourself watch your thoughts. And let the mind become quiet. And then it slips away a little bit, doesn't it? But just remember, let the body, the heart, and the mind be quiet. Don't get perfectionistic about this. Let the body, the heart, and the mind become quiet. Let. It's a letting. It's allowing the body to settle. Allowing the heart to open. Allowing the mind to clear. Let the body, the heart, and the mind become quiet. And know yourself to be the soul, a transcendent consciousness, unborn and undying. Know yourself to be the soul. You don't have to make that happen. It just is. You don't have to find a transcendent consciousness. You are a transcendent consciousness. And you don't have to struggle for immortality. The transcendent consciousness, known as the soul, is unborn and undying. It is our original nature. And it is a being of love and light. Your essential identity is a being of love and light. You don't have to wait till you're perfect. You don't have to wait till you die. You don't have to wait for thousands of years. You are that. Let the body, the heart, and the mind be quiet. Know yourself to be the soul. And offer yourself in service, if you will. Offer yourself in service to the benevolence of the universe. Offer yourself in service to the compassionate intention of the universe. Tonight we're going to talk about the great ones. And I remember a number of moments when I was teaching in centers and basements, and even out on the out. And I remember people saying, "Well, there are no great ones. We're all great ones," and in a sense, that's true. And we're all transcendent consciousness. But I want to talk about the great ones known as the Masters of Wisdom. The Masters of Wisdom and Compassion, of whom the Buddha and the Christ are the preeminent exemplars. The Buddha representing light, the Christ representing love, really friends in a single house. No struggle, no conflict between the East and the West, no conflict between the Buddha and the Christ. But it doesn't really stop there with simply the Buddha and the Christ. There's a couple of words. One is Mahatma, which you may have heard in association with Mohandas Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi was definitely a great man. He was, however, not a Mahatma. A Mahatma means a great being. And when a wisdom person says great, they don't mean a really, large one or successful one or famous one, they mean universal. Like great means universal. Like great compassion means universal compassion. Great responsibility means universal responsibility. So a Mahatma is a great being. Atman meaning self, Maha meaning great, a great being. And a great being is a universal being, one who has gone beyond the personality and the peculiarities of the personality, and who has become a conscious spirit. Another that's Sanskrit, and another word is adept, adeptus in Latin. Adepti would be the plural. Sorry, I had to look that up today. An adept is one who is exempt from birth and death. And I know that the lodges, the various occult lodges have used this term. They kind of co-opted it and used it as a name for a level of initiation inside their lodge. And I'm not going to argue with that, but that's not how I'm using it. I'm using it to mean an adeptus exemptus, and in the technical, literal sense, where such a person has mastered the physical, the emotional, and the mental aspects of reality, and has gone beyond them, has gone beyond personality to becoming a conscious spirit. And such a being is exempt from birth and death. Mahatma, great being. Adept, one who is exempt, one who has mastered and is exempt from the limitations, one who has mastered the body, the heart, and the mind, and is exempt from their limitations, is free from them. We'll say more about that in a minute. And there's a couple other words I want to throw in here that aren't usually used in here, but I want to throw them in to kind of help illuminate what we're talking about. We're talking about the Masters of Wisdom. And a lot of times, Euro-centered people arising from European background, will refer to Asian people as ancestor worshippers, or ancestor worshipping peoples, and makes it sound real primitive and kind of unsophisticated. But actually, it's not. Actually, if you look a little more deeply into more Asiatic-centered cultures, you begin to understand what this is. It's definitely a veneration of one's parents and one's lineage, like grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, and going back. It's definitely a veneration of that. That's part of it. But it's also a reverence for the originals, the primal ones, like the primal fathers and mothers, the primal, the primal leader, the primal healer, the primal teacher. And where and when exactly we're referring to, this is a little bit mysterious. There are, legendary figures in the history of all these cultures. Great kings and queens and holy sages, and they probably were actual people at some point, and then they became lineages of their followers, their students, their servants, people who carried on their virtues and their ideals. So one way to think about the masters is as our spiritual ancestors. And some of the masters are names that we know that are linked to historical persons, but who exactly those people were originally is mysterious. And so we're referring to people who really set in motion great principles like righteousness and compassion and liberty and justice and wisdom and kindness and justice. I already said justice, liberty and justice, and set these things in motion. The originators, the founders of those values and those ways. So when we talk about the masters, we're talking about spiritual ancestors, and there's a lot of people who are quite specific about their names. And for the moment, I prefer to leave that a little bit mysterious. We're talking about people who brought light and love. We're talking about people human beings, who brought light and love into the world. Beings like the Buddha and the Christ, and others whose names we do not know. And another way to think about this is archetypes. Archetypes are, in psychology, they're thought to be, instinctive images that are, kind of grounded in our genetics, like the original leader, the original healer, the original teacher, the wise old man, the great mother, these figures, these images. And I would like to suggest that our spiritual ancestors and the deep psychic archetypes are connected somehow. That perhaps our ancestors, when we say ancestors and we mean it in a deep sense, perhaps we're referring to the archetypes. And perhaps when we refer to the archetypes, we're perhaps referring to our ancestry, the beings that originated our way. So Mahatmas, the great beings, the adepti, the masters, those who have mastered themselves and have become exempt from the limitations of the self. And I'm suggesting that we could think of them as ancestors or archetypes, whatever you're most comfortable with. And I'm seeing those terms as maybe not exactly synonymous, but definitely related and connectable. And there's a sense that such beings are immortal. And again, beyond birth and death. And every once in a while somebody throws out the word master, like we talk about a person as a master of this or a master of that. And one could be a master of the violin, or a master of the sword, but such a person is not a master in the sense that I'm using it. I'm using it in the sense of one who is a conscious spiritual being and beyond birth and death. There's a little teaching comes out of the wisdom, and I adapt these things a little bit to make them more simple. And by adapt, I don't mean that I add things to them. I mean that I take some things out and I kind of smooth out sentences. And if one word will do, if I can turn two words into one word, I tend to want to do that, because I think in order to bridge from the wisdom to the people, things have to be simple. A lot of these literatures are arcane. They're archaic, and they're arcane, and they're occult, and they're kind of hidden. And I think some of these ideas need to be set free. And so I adapt phrasing. And some of my friends probably are not comfortable with that. And some of you probably appreciate it because it makes things a little bit easier to understand. That is my effort to make these things clearer for understanding. And I do that by simplifying language. So here it goes. This is an ancient teaching and appeared in 20th century esoteric literature, and it helps us to understand the masters of wisdom. The Blessed Ones. The Blessed Ones can take a form and yet are not the form. The Blessed Ones love not and yet love all. The Blessed Ones know not and yet know all. Naught binds the Blessed Ones, not form, nor love, nor knowledge. Pure light they are, pure love, and pure intent. The Blessed Ones can take a form and yet are not the form. We're talking about beings who can appear like an avatar. They can appear with a body and then not, and be gone. There's legends about such people. Count Saint Germain, also known as the Master Rockhoxy, might have been both Roger and Francis Bacon. I'm not saying I'm sure about that, but that's part of the legend. And appeared during the American Revolution and then disappeared. The Master of the Seventh Ray, Count Saint Germain, also known as Rockhoxy, the Master Rockhoxy. So the Blessed Ones can take a form and yet are not the form. Well, that shouldn't be so impossible, because we do that too. We take a form. We are a soul, and we take a body, and we live in it for a time, and then it falls away, and we repeat this. This is rebirth, the cycle of rebirth. And but I can't do that at will, and you probably can't either. I can't drop my body and pick up another one at will. I can't, have my body appear here and then appear there, or have it appear in two different places at the same time. And there are reports across millennia and across continents that there are some people who can do that. The Blessed Ones can take a form and yet are not the form. The Blessed Ones love not and yet love all. And what this means is that to me, the way I'm using this, what it means to me is that the Blessed Ones, the Masters, are, their love is universal. It's gone great. They're in the great love. Doesn't mean they don't love in a small way. Doesn't mean they can't love a friend or a servant or a disciple or a colleague, another master. It doesn't mean they can't love individually, but their love has gone universal. And that shouldn't be so hard to imagine, because you have a taste of that, don't you? You have a feel for the love of all beings, and in our time, in our time and place, if some child falls in a well anywhere in the world, we are concerned about that. Not just our child, but the child of a neighbor, a stranger from another place, falls in a well, and in our time we care about that. So what is that? That's the great love. That's the universal love. So the Blessed Ones love not, yet love all. And when it says love not, it doesn't mean, or when I say that, I don't mean that they can't love individuals. I'm just saying they are not bound in that way. The blessed ones know not and yet know all. And what this means to me, the way I'm using this, what this means to me is that if I become obsessed with a particular worldview, a particular mindset, a particular belief system or paradigm, then I lose access to the universal knowing. Now, I'm obviously a student of wisdom and other things. I was an educator and I was a psychologist, and I've studied a lot of things. And I care about that, and I know some things from that. But if I let myself become so obsessed about what I've learned, about my knowledge, then I lose my openness and clarity, my access to the universal knowing. So you probably have some sense of that. Like there's things you can learn in a book, and there's things you can learn, from a speaker, and then there's things you just know. And you wouldn't want the things that you can learn from a book or from a speaker to take over your entire mind, your entire, intelligence, so that you could not allow intuition to show you something, from the universal knowing. So the blessed ones can take a form and yet are not the form. The blessed ones love not and yet love all. The blessed ones know not and yet know all. Naught binds the blessed ones, not form, nor love, nor knowledge. So the masters of wisdom are beings who have mastered the physical form, the emotional form, and the mental form. So they are not bound by body, feelings, or thoughts. Like, I have a body, I have feelings, I have thoughts, and I am somewhat bound by the habits of my body, the desires of my heart, and the beliefs of my mind. And I work to free myself somewhat from these biases, but they still trip me every once in a while. So a master would be one who was free of that. And naught binds the blessed ones, not form, nor love, nor knowledge. Pure light they are. We too are light. In our essential nature, we are pure light, but I can't necessarily clear my mind, and just be pure light. I can't do it at will. I have moments, I have moments, you probably do too. Pure light they are, pure love. Pure love. Okay. I'm not saying that such a person cannot love another individual. In my experience is that they do. But they would not allow themselves to be so bound by that it would prevent their empathy from expanding to all beings, and from becoming, their love can become universal. Pure light they are, pure love. And another thing that might be meant by pure love is, like sometimes when we love people, we basically want them to be what we want them to be. And people are kind of stubborn that way. People are what they are. And if you stay on the path of love, the yoga of love, if you stay with the yoga of love long enough, you'll learn that it's really has nothing to do with control. And then our love becomes less controlling and more pure. Pure light they are, pure love, and pure intent. All right, what that means to me, the way I'm using this, is that if my will is aligned with, I'm just going to say the old language, God's will, if I align my intention with my individual intention with the universal intention, and a great example of this is Christ's prayer, not my will, let thy will be done. And so if I can align my individual intention with the universal intention, the benevolent, compassionate intention of the universe, then my will is pure. My intent is pure. So, talking about the masters, the blessed ones can take a form and yet are not the form. The blessed ones love not, yet love all. The blessed ones know not, yet know all. Not holds the blessed ones. Not form, not love, not knowledge. Free. Free to take a form, free to love, free to know. Whatever needs to be known, whoever needs to be loved, whatever form needs to be. Free. Pure light they are. Pure love and pure intent. So, every once in a while somebody throws out the word master. Someone actually threw that word at me a few weeks ago on Facebook, and I appreciate that. It was very kind. I am not a master. I am a servant. I am not free of birth and death. I am not free of habit, desire, and belief. I have not mastered my mind, my heart, and my body so that they are pure. I work with it. I strive. I practice. But there are legends of beings that have mastered these things. The Buddha and the Christ being the preeminent examples. And I'm just going to say a few names. Okay, there's Rakoxi, the Count Saint Germain, who I already mentioned. There's the Master Jesus. There's a master known as Kutumi, and a master known as Moria, and many whose names we do not know, and the master of the masters, Maitreya, and beyond that, the one known as Sanat Kumara, in the east known as Avalokiteshvara, and in the west known as Melchizedek. And in the wisdom teachings known as Sanat Kumara, the eternal sacrifice, the one who has promised, who has vowed to remain until all of us make it home, till all of us are free. So you can take this as a legend. It's a mythos, and that doesn't mean it's not real. And for myself, I read the literature about who these beings are and what they are, and I have my sense of their presence in my prayers. But I believe it behooves me to remain humble about exactly what we're talking about and how it works. And I know there's a lot of very specific science, esoteric science about how it works. And please don't, you don't have to send all that to me because I have read it. But we're dealing with beings who are still alive after thousands of years after their deaths, who can be present for billions of people. That's a mysterious reality. And yet there's something to it. And the legend is perennial and universal. There are stories and legends worldwide. So the masters. For myself, the masters are not a matter of belief. They are a matter of friendship. Personally, I found it offensive, the notion that someone might be more evolved than myself. When I was young and ignorant and arrogant, I found it offensive, that notion that there might be beings that were vastly more evolved than myself. And that was before I got in real trouble. And then I got in real trouble and I asked for help and it came. And the evidence of serendipity and synchronicity became so undeniable, so overwhelming, and undeniable that for me the masters are not a matter of belief, it's a matter of friendship. And I don't need anybody to believe this. Really, I just want you to know that if you get in real trouble and you ask for help, it will come. You have to ask sincerely, and you don't get to control it, and it might not be the way you want. It might not turn out the way you would wish, but it will be, in a sense, beautiful. That has been my experience, and that even the most dreadful events have a kind of beauty to them and a perfection if you can just stay open and clear. So if you would, again, settle into your posture, settle into your body, breathe your breath, feel your feelings, watch your thoughts, know yourself to be the soul. Offer yourself in service. You can very simply do this by saying, I offer myself in service. I offer myself in service. If you're ready, you can just say it, I offer myself in service. And then there's that space, and in that space is where we meet the presence of the friend. When we are ready, so in that space, remember those moments you were in trouble and you called for help and it came. Remember those moments of synchronicity and serendipity. You called for help and it came. Perhaps not in the way that you would have, wanted it, and perhaps not, it didn't turn out as you would have wished. But if you'll remember, there was a sense that you were not lost and you were not alone. And there was a beauty, if not a wonder, in the kind of perfection. Let the body be quiet. Let the heart be quiet. Let the mind be quiet. In that space, you are the soul. And in that moment, you find the presence of the friend, which was always already there, never not there for you. May you be blessed with light and with love, that you may serve the plan. May you be guided and guarded. May you be protected and comforted. May you be helped, and may you be healed.